Hi guys, we're here with our part 2 of our beginner's guide to Delta Force. In this one, we are going to cover everything to do with your black site, what each of these divisions does and how it helps you, as well as when you should and should not upgrade them. This is super important because your upgrades can be, unfortunately, a matter of stash space versus ability to fight, and the upgrades can drastically make a difference in being able to outmaneuver your opponents. Starting first with your 4 production departments, you have the cyber warfare, which crafts guns and attachments. Goes to a max level of 3. You also have the workbench, which crafts ammo, so the ammunition for your guns. Pharmacy, which crafts repairs, heals, and stimulants. And the armor bench, which crafts armor. As you level these, more items become available for you to craft. So a level 1 workbench may not be able to craft gold or red ammo, where if you get it to level 3, it can do all of those things. My recommendation is, as you find the items for these departments in Raid, exfil with them, use them to upgrade, and get them maxed out as soon as possible. This is because you can craft to sell and maintain a cash value so that you're not just suffering and being forced to always budget run. Your stash controls how much space you have in your stash. There are 10 levels to this. I am 2 upgrades away from being max stash personally. I'm working on it. It shows that I don't have these items. I'll show you why in a moment. But I do have 3 of the 4 items. However, this one is excessively expensive, and therefore I'm waiting until I find it. This helps increase how much stash space you have to store gear, weapons, items that you find in Raid, and it gives you access to more stash crates that further expand your stash space. Central Command is reliant on how much XP you gain from your operations, as well as how many slots you can have in your auction house. At the beginning, you will have 5 slots available to you. I believe it might be 6. It's been a very long time since I've looked at a starting auction house stash amount. Once you max out your Central Command HQ, you are up to a total of 15 slots in your auction. Your CSD increases your downed movement speed so that you can reposition back up to your teammates or just move out of the line of fire if needed, such as if you get sniped, you can move behind cover so you can get safely rezzed. Max stamina, which means that you can run for longer, and max stamina recovery goes up by 50%. You'll notice when you start playing that as you run, you may not run as fast as some of your other teammates. That is because they probably have upgrades in the CSD. This is a fairly important one just for repositioning's sake and the ability to get where you need to go as quickly as possible. Out of all of the departments, my recommendation is to max out your CSD and your Central Command as quickly as possible. These 2 will be super helpful in your journey playing Delta Force. The firing range as well is important, although not as important. The firing range will increase your max load that you can carry before you are encumbered and forced to only walk. The diving center is a fairly new department, recently introduced with the release of Prison. The prison map is hard mode only. I will cover all locations in a future video. The diving center allows you for increased lung capacity, as well as breath recovered when not diving, and your underwater stamina cost reduction. The lung capacity is super useful because I don't believe it's completely locked to just when you're diving. This may also include when you are trying to stabilize your ability, like when you stabilize during firing. Again, that is a slightly more advanced thing. I will get into that when I get into gun builds in a later video, I promise. This is rather helpful. However, again, this is an expensive upgrade and not as important as these three and your stash. The collection room, which is how I'm going to show you why it looks like I don't have the items, but I do. This is to display your red items or your gold items. It helps maintain stash space for you to be able to pull out more things. You get a nice, lovely wall. You can upgrade all of the lighting for all of these items. And as you can see, there's the vacuum cleaner, there's the carbon fiber board up there, and the high-speed disc array. So all of these items are reds that I have collected, and the collection room is fairly large. You've got areas where you can display other items that aren't necessarily just red items, but you can use this to clear out some stash space. The first upgrade for this is rather expensive, so if you get lucky and find all the items, I would recommend doing it that way. However, this is not a necessary upgrade. You can function without it. It's nice to have it, but you can function without it, just for the record. So you have the area where you can put them in or take them out as needed. And this is where if you have extra of an item, you can use it as a sacrifice to upgrade the counter displays. And as you collect these red items, they'll go into this wall. And then, of course, your showcase area, which also has space for you to do that. The more you upgrade, the more slots you get, the more upgrades are available to you. Again, this one is not as important. Production can be wildly profitable for you if you find what works for you. The reason why I'm saying this is because everybody will produce something different and they'll do this differently. Some people will produce to use, and so they will craft attachments, ammo, repairs, med surge, and armor that they will use. Personally, I craft to sell because I have a specific set of guns, gear, etc. that I use, and it works for me. That is not the case for everybody, and you sort of need to find what your playstyle is and how you want to run this. But crafting, when you can exfil out of a match with the items you need to craft, is extremely helpful for you because it reduces the cost of having to buy them. For example, I craft to sell gold ammo and combat stimulants, as well as the GN heavy helmet. I will sometimes use this silencers myself. However, they are not as integral to what I do as others. I'm going to just go to my auction house because it's easier to show you why things are tagged the way they are. For example, box drip coffee is used for an exchange for the ammo. And so I exfil with the boxed dripped coffee. I also exfil with the 1x1 cutlass because that's the other half of it. The aramid fiber is for the helmet. The gunpowder is for the ammo. The small vial is for the combat stim. And I keep these pinned at all times so that if they show up, they flash at me with a star saying, hey, this is a favorite item. You should pick this up. And you can see here where I've recently bought because I had to buy to start my productions. So these were bought for the silencer. These were bought for the ammo. This was bought for the steel, for the helmet, which included this and the manometer. And then the yogurt and the purified water was for the stim. You can see your recent purchases in the auction house if you do things like this and then say, oh, I should probably favorite those because they're stuff I exfil with. Keep in mind, of course, that sometimes it just doesn't make any sense to pull out, 14 bottles of super glue out of a raid where it takes up space that you could just use for something else. You have to take a look at your cost benefit when you're crafting. Even just crafting to use versus crafting to sell, you always want to try and exfil with some of the items for the things you need to craft. In regards to your stash, this is super important because I want to show you why it's so needed to have an upgraded stash. You can see the sheer amount of guns that I am currently holding on to. This is because I will go on streaks where I may not be able to exfil and I can't afford to rekit with my gun, so I use what I have in stash. And that's why I usually have a horde of guns, and it's just for safety purposes, as it were. And it used to be that I only came up to about where this Iridium is here. I didn't have all of this stash space until I just decided to say, screw it. And I bought the upgrade of the piece that I was missing so I could upgrade my stash. Knowing when to upgrade your black site versus when not to upgrade your black site. If you are short on cash and you're planning on playing for the night, starting a stash upgrade that may cost you what you basically have in available is probably not a good idea. Wait until the end of the night, and if you have to flash sell a bunch of stuff and just sell it to a vendor, you can do that, get the money up, buy it, and then when you get off, you can just leave your black site to upgrade overnight. The upgrade time is based on IRL time, and so in real life time. So if you were to start it at 8 a.m. and it's a 12-hour upgrade time, then it will be done at 8 p.m. These are just things that as you go through, you sort of have to weigh. If you're going to play, starting an upgrade is probably not your best bet. I did that the other night while doing my own seasonals. It did not go well for me because I was forced to then run budget the entire night, and I ran through pretty much everything I had stashed. So again, this is heavily dependent on when you're playing versus how much money you have. Again, your top 3 that you're going to want to upgrade: Central Command, CSD, Firing Range. These are the top 3 with your stash upgrades as you can. These are not as expensive to upgrade, but definitely worthwhile doing as well for crafting purposes. So that covers the black site. The next one I'm going to cover is the departments, and specifically why vendor missions are important. So as always, guys, I love you lots. Be kind to one another. And for the love of God, stop sending weird shit to the VAs. I will see you guys in the next video where we cover department missions.